May we get busy with Torah and soak ourselves in Torah. Amen va'amen. Pamaim amen. Selah chamsa alechem. All right. Here we go. So we got a lot of it. All right. First of all, check it out. You know what I learned this week? That this week's Torah portion, Vayelech, is the shortest Torah portion in the entire Torah. It only has 31 verses. 31 verses. That's it. As opposed to, I think the longest is Naso, which has like 176 verses. 13 verses. That's it. So when I was preparing, I was like, did I miss something? Did I miss something here? I don't even know. Okay, here's my question. Oh, I got to turn my camera off for a second. I'll be right back. I got something stuck in my teeth. You don't want to see me like digging it out. All right, I'm back because that was driving me crazy.
We love you, Rabbi.
All right, here we go. All right. Let me ask you this question first. I guess it's not really a question. I'll get into the question after. All right. Have you heard the idea? Okay, so Yom Kippur, I think most of us have heard this idea before. It's sort of like a dress rehearsal for our funeral, right? That is why we don't eat. That's why we fast. That's why we're not supposed to wear like fancy clothes, leather. Like traditionally, you wear a shroud, right? You wear a kittel. It's like a burial shroud, and then you stand. We open the ark with the three, holding with the three Torah is supposed to be like the Beit Din in judgment when you go to Olam Haba, or actually when you go to the purgatory, the time in between. It's why we say, I'll get there in a second. So maybe you've heard that before. Have you heard that before? That's what Yom Kippur kind of, right? So yeah, it's like, wow. But it's kind of cool because it says like, you never know what's going to happen, right? Who shall live? Who shall die? Unatan Tokef, all that kind of stuff. You never know. You never know. You never know. So the question is, if today was your last day on earth, would you think of yourself as living a full, good, righteous life, right? Not necessarily, living a life not from fear, but from strength. And as few regrets as possible, because I don't know if it's possible to live a life without regret, but as few regrets as possible. Okay, so it's like they say, an example, like when you die and you're going into, those judgment gates, there's a beautiful teaching that says it's like going to see a double feature. You're going to go to the movies. Do you remember the double features? I mean, how many? I went a few times because it was like at the cheap theater, $5, $2 theaters. But like, man, sit there for 5 hours, or the fake one where you would have to say Al Chetz on Yom Kippur because you went to one movie and then you snuck into another. I know no one on this call has ever done that, for sure not, right? But they say you're going to see like a double feature. The first one is how your life was, right? It's just like a review, like the movie Defending Your Life. Here it is, here's what your life was like. And the second one is what your life would have been like if you lived righteously, without regret, without fear, making the right decisions, the good decisions, right? And they say the most righteous among us would see the same movie twice, right? The most righteous among us would see the same movie twice, all right? So what they say is like, when we say Kaddish for the ones that we love, we say it for how long? We say for 11 months. We don't say it for a full year, right? That extra month is left over for the people who really did not live a good full life. But we say for 11 months. And they say it's like during that 11 months is the time of reflection that our soul's reflection on itself, right? Like reconciling the life that we lived versus the life that we could have lived, and reconciling that, and then the soul moving on from there. That's just like one interesting teaching. So do you remember the story? I promise I'm getting somewhere with this. So you remember the story. First of all, before I say that, you know, in Israel, when somebody has a birthday, do you know what people say to them on their birthdays besides happy birthday? Does anybody know what people say?
And many more?
No, they don't say and many more, but I like that. And many more on channel 4, right?
After they say Yom Huledet Sameach, what do
That's
they
happy
say?
birthday, Yom Huledet Sameach, and they also say something else.
Ad Me'av Yisrin?
Yafeh, Miriam, yes. Ad 120, Ad 120, which means may you live to 120. Why? Why 120?
Because Moses lived to 100.
Because Moses lived to 120. So then I always say, Ad 120 ke'esrim, may you live to 120 as if you were 20. Right? May you live to 120 as if you're 20. More as like, so you don't have, you know, living to 120, you don't have all the aches and pains and all that kind of stuff. Like when I graduated college and I lived with my best friends in Santa Monica, we played basketball every weekend, and we called ourselves OMAC, the Old Man's Athletic Club. And we thought it was like, oh, that's funny. Look at these old guys just graduated college. Oh, we're the Old Man's Athletic Club, and we're just having fun. But now it's not so funny, right? When we still get together, because now we really feel like the Old Men's Athletic Club always come, oh, my back, oh, my knees and everything. Oh, the mortgage, the kids, blah, 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 blah. And after we play, whether it's now pickleball, right now, after that, we come home and everybody's icing and everything. So it's like, now it's not so funny. But you remember the story. I'm sure I've told this story before. About the young new rabbi going to his first small community. Have you remember this story? The new young rabbi going to his first small community. He's very excited, goes to the small community, and he's greeted by the president of the community, and the president of the community is showing him around the community. Oh, this is where you're gonna have your morning coffee. This is where you're gonna have breakfast. They got fabulous challah over here. This is, you know, the shul that we're gonna pray in, and that's the shul you wouldn't be caught dead in. Feh, right? And they're going all around the community, and the president takes him to the community's cemetery. Does this sound familiar to anybody? Takes it to the community cemetery, and then they're walking around in the cemetery, and you know, he's noticing a couple of things that's very fascinating. That on the headstones are the number of years that the person lived, not their birthday and their date of death, date of birth. It's just the number of years that the person lived. And then they bring him over to the area where the rabbis are buried, right? And he's like looking at these years, and he starts kind of like sweating and freaking out, because he says, this rabbi, 38 years. This rabbi over here, 24 years. This rabbi over here, 50 years. Okay, 50, pretty good, but still. And starts sweating, and he's like, my God, is this community so difficult that they're killing off their rabbis? Right? So the president, she sees him kind of sweating, and she's like, oh, let me explain, Rabbi, let me explain. So what we do here in our community is every day or every night before we go to sleep, Harold, I thought that was a fake background. But there's some dude walking around behind you. Oh, you got me, man. You got me. That was so funny. Okay. Anyway, we're right. So he says, so here's what we do in our community. Every year, every day, before we go to bed, we write down in a journal. We write down how much time we spent serving God in the day, right? And we're not just talking about prayer or something like that. We're talking about the way that we lived our lives. with kindness, with help. What was the way, like our intention in the world, right? How much of the time did we spend serving God? So we add up that number, we put it down. And then at the end of the year, and Rosh Hashanah, and during these days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, we add up that number, and that's how many, hopefully those hours into the days, and that's how many days we actually lived, right? We actually lived, not just existed. So then at the time of somebody's death, they add up all of those numbers, and that's the number that they put on the stone. So she says, you see, that guy, it says, 34 years, but really he was on the earth for 80 years. She was on the earth for 75 years, even though it says only 24 years over there. So it goes on. So he's like, oh, all right, fine. So it relates to the movie idea, right? It relates to the movie idea that what age would you want on your stone, the number of years you actually spent serving God, to be as close as possible, if not exactly the same as the number of years, moments, days that you spent on earth, right? So I really believe that when you say Ad Mea Ve'esrim, may you live to 120, it kind of brings a new spin to the thought that it's not just about may you exist for 120 years, right? But truly live one's life. So then it comes like, why would that be? Why is that a blessing? So let me ask you, what does it mean? What would it mean to truly live one's life? What does it mean to truly live one's life?
May I answer?
Go ahead, Jonah. Go ahead.
I believe that that when you give back and you don't do it for recognition or glory for yourself, but you do it to do the right thing to do, even though you may have not lived a life, going through things that I've been through. I've learned through Rabbi Leader and you and everyone, I have a good heart, doing good things for others, and silently, privately, quietly, anonymously, doing things for others and giving back and not wanting recognition for it.
Okay, good. Who's unmuted that's got that kind of interesting noise going on in the background? That you, Miriam?
I think so.
Oh, it was. I muted her. Okay, so this is what I find very interesting over here. Do you all see the document? Yeah?
Yes, sir.
Does anybody need me to make the font bigger?
No, it's
Great. Okay, good. All right. Moses went and spoke these things to all Israel. He said to them, I am now 120 years old. I can no longer be active. Moreover, Adonai has said to me, you shall not go across yonder Jordan. It is indeed your God Adonai who will cross over before you and who will wipe out those nations from your path, and you shall dispossess them. Joshua is the one who shall cross before you as Adonai has spoken. As Adonai has spoken. Okay, so here's my question. Do we think that Moses feels as if he fulfilled everything he wanted to do in his life? Do we feel that Moses feels like he fulfilled everything he wanted to do in his life? Merle, what do you think?
I'm not sure that he knew how to feel that way.
Ooh, tell me.
But I think that he had done whatever he was capable of doing, even with some of the faults that came along with it.
That's interesting.
And part of that being, I was taught somewhere along the line that, you think about the good deeds that we do for these numbers, so to speak.
Okay.
But you don't wake up in the morning and say, okay, what am I going to do today to get credit? That whatever you do it natural. You do it, I guess, naturally, for lack of a better word. And I don't know that Moses did it naturally because he didn't get to speak for himself. But
check this out. I don't know. I don't know, Merle. Okay, there's a lot of things going on there.
Yeah.
What we hope to be able to do in our life versus what are we actually capable of, right? That we do have some limitations. Like, am I going to regret that I didn't play NBA basketball for the Lakers and everything like that in my life? I don't regret. There's no way I could do that. However, here's the thing, Merle. So I love that. As Jews, regardless if we do this or not, we actually do have, how did you put it? Rather than the natural, what did you say? There are like these. We
don't wake up in the morning and say, okay, what am I going to do today?
But we do. That's the thing. That's exactly right. In our tradition, we do. We do. Before we go to bed, before we wake up, and before we go to sleep, we say, Modeh ani lefanecha Adonai, right? I am grateful to you, God. Thank you for returning my soul to me that I may go and serve and do my thing and do your thing and my thing in your name. Boom. We have that. And we say at night, right? Shema Yisrael Adonai. We say, shelter us thy wings, Adonai, right? Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Lishal, right? So we do have those bookends. But
it's just not something
if we do them or not, we have them.
I was just gonna, but is it something? Yeah, they're there. And we're taught that from the time we're born.
But we're supposed to do that every morning. And that is the reminder.
Well, yeah, I guess so. I just never looked at it that way.
Me neither.
And really. I do it, and I do it when I meditate as well. But I guess I just don't think about the purpose of any of it. I just get up and I do it.
Wow.
Say my prayers, morning blessings, whatever.
Yeah.
And go to Minyan at a congregation in town.
Yeah.
But I just do it. And maybe it became rote. Maybe that's how I was raised.
Interesting. Thank you. Roy. And then Rebecca.
I like what Merle said. I think I'm going to add a little bit, maybe a other perspective. I don't know if Moses had regret. Sometimes things just don't work out that you don't have control over. But he may not have regret if he's coached Joshua properly, that Joshua can lead a moral and ethical leadership position for the rest of the Jewish people that actually cross over into Jordan.
That is very interesting. Okay, we're gonna. There's a part that kind of says that in the next piece. Very nice, Roy. Thank you, Rebecca. Go.
Well, I'm going to add to that because it's my understanding that they go into the land of Canaan.
Yeah.
Is that right? And it's full of other tribes, the Hittite. So Moses is like sending everybody into they're going to meet a lot of obstacles.
Yeah. You're not wrong. And this is like God's telling them, don't worry, I got you. Okay, Moses not coming with you, but I'm going to go in front. I'm going to knock everybody out the way. Because this is very interesting. We'll get there. I appreciate that. Thank you, Rebecca. Pnina, and then we're going to keep going.
All right. I think, in Yiddish, there is a saying that says, man lachs and God tracht. In other words, we can live our life and we can, or the other way around. Actually, it's supposed to be. Man will do the work, but God is still laughing. In other words, still is going to happen sometimes regardless to what you're trying to do.
Right. They would say, God, we make plans and God laughs. Right?
Something like this. Or the other way around. We think we've got it and God is laughing.
Yeah.
In other words, we can do all our best and things still will happen. And you can't justify it always because you did something wrong. Things happen because maybe people are not nice to each other. So things will happen and that's not what God wanted, right? We have the 10 Commandments to teach us to live with each other and love each other or help each other or whatever, so we should have a better life. But I think people are the ones that sometimes do not rise to the occasion. And I think that what Moses was trying to do in the end, he was worried that with all the 10 commandments, they still may have not gotten it, because he keeps saying in the last moment, he's repeating the 10 commandments. So the idea is that the secret, I think, to long life is how actually people treat each other. And even in medicine, right? They're trying to find all kind of stuff, cures to change the faith of a person, to make him live longer. So it's still meant to humanity to mankind. So that's all I can think of, that he's worried that they shouldn't forget that wherever it is that he was teaching them. And what he was teaching them is how to live with each other. What they do later, I don't think he had control over it.
Oh, he definitely did. So let me ask you this. I'm going to put this other question.
And as far as Joshua was supposed to be the first judge. In other words, the judges mostly were trying to bring peace about when disputes came up. And also there were fighters. They were all generals. They were all leading in wars. And that's what Joshua did.
That's all what happens next is all this.
Right. All this area is the try to survive in a new place. And actually it wasn't that new, because the rest of the tribes who never went down to Egypt were still living there. But they had their problems there with the neighbors and also sometimes with each other. And that's where the judges came. They were actually generals. They were actually leading in wars.
Great. Okay.
So I don't think he expected from Joshua to do any different, because that's what Joshua was. The first thing he did was take down the walls of Jericho. That's it.
So here's the next question. Was it indeed a punishment?
No.
That Moses didn't go in to the promised land the way that it was portrayed? That it's what God said. He's like, look, and if you remember, we talked about this a few months ago with Chukat, where, the Israelites are thirsty. So Moses goes to God and God says, hit the rock with your stick and water will come out. He does it. He hits the rock with a stick. Great, fabulous. The water comes out. Then again, they're still complaining. They're still really thirsty. So he goes back to God and God says, okay, speak to the rock and, bring the water forth. So he goes and he speaks to the rock, or he's supposed to go and speak to the rock, but they're complaining, gets really frustrated. So he hits the rock again, right? It's like muscle memory. And then the water comes out. He's like, great, here's the water. But then God says, because you didn't listen to me, you don't get to go into the promised land. Was that, and here he is saying, I don't get to go in with you. I'm too old. I'm not so
that's
really
exactly what it was. He was too old and he was tired.
So was it a punishment that he's not going in? Was it a punishment?
He got to be very old. So
he did get to be very old, but was it?
So I don't think it's a punishment.
I don't think
Hold on, Pnina. Hold on.
I don't think.
Was it a punishment?
No, God was sparing him because all the foreigners, different tribes, and what Israel was going to have to be facing, he was being spared from all that, and I think that God was protecting him and letting him rest in peace.
That's a good point.
That's good.
That's really a good point. He was tired, and he just accepted whatever it is that was supposed to be his faith, and I don't think he himself felt like he wants to go through this whole.
Yeah, he's like, okay, I'll go if I have to. But
He was tired.
Okay, go Rebecca and then Roy. Rebecca and then Roy.
Rebecca
and then Roy.
Well, I kind of changed my mind, but what I was what I was going to say is, it's we all reach points in our life when it's time to move on.
Yeah.
And I think that was the best way to tell the story of Moses, that he had made this mistake. And because how do you explain such a man as Moses not going, to the land of plenty, other than old age and it was time to die? There's got to be some reason for his so-called demise. And I think that's the only way that they were able to justify the story of his death. Because why wouldn't he live into eternity? Why wouldn't he just keep on going? I mean, he's the all-time prophet, right?
whatever.
Good point.
It's also
Right.
they had new challenges to meet over there. It was a
Correct. New challenges that
transformation.
it wasn't in his skill set.
And it was a transformation into becoming farmers. They had to learn all these things and get used to it and not to become nomads no more. This is the whole transformation of reshaping what the tribes were to begin with.
Beautiful.
So they were supposed to teach whoever was there not to change their lives. The ones that settled there already, that never left, they were supposed to change their life into becoming farmers. They
Well,
were
this is
shepherds
it's
and
interesting
nomads.
what happens next, because okay, go Roy, and then I want to go back to the text. Sorry, Roy, and then Merle. I know Merle, you had your hand up too. Roy, Merle, and then back to the text because I got something else cuckoo to share.
Was Moses being punished? Perhaps maybe more being used as an example, in that Moses was the presenter of the laws to the people, and so now they need to get water from the rock. So rather than using words, or by extension discussion, to get water, what did Moses do? He used violence. He struck the rock. He didn't communicate or talk to the rock, so to speak. Therefore, he wasn't following the word of God.
Which is fascinating, because what happens next when they go into the land, it's all about war. And God's like, we're going to kill all these people. We're going to get rid of them. And I'm going to put you back in this land. And it's going to be fighting. There's no like, hey, can we talk about it? Maybe we could share, something like that. It's none of that, right? It's none of that. We'll get there. Merle, go. Thank you, Roy.
I'm just thinking it's what Roy said and what Rebecca said.
Yeah.
To me, it's like this is the beginning, the precursor to term limitations. You've done all you can do, and you're old and tired, and it's time for you to train somebody else to be prepared for all the fighting and the wars when you get over the border.
Beautiful. Oh, okay, Rebecca, go ahead. You get the last word.
Well, I think the point can also be made that we're all morally flawed. And as great as Moses was, he had his shortcomings also.
Oh, for sure.
Right on, Rebecca.
Always, he's like, we got to keep going. We got to keep going. We have to keep. All right, go ahead, Panina. How can I say no to Sapta? Go ahead.
I just want to remind you in the beginning when Abraham first came, the land was barren. What did he do first? Dug wells. And he was supposed to be a very righteous person. All the other nations who lived there were always in peace with him. They were friendly to him. He knew how to live with his neighbors. And yet,
Oh, that's a good point.
And yet he's the one who started digging up wells so the place should start being more fruitful, more productive.
Beautiful.
And then yet, whenever Lot was kidnapped, his nephew, Abraham gathered 300 men and he went to war and he rescued him.
Mm-hmm.
So even the righteous person that you have to do sometimes things in order to survive, that later on he still was supposed to be a very righteous person. And so I think the same thing is with Moses. He did whatever he needed to do at the time, the best way he knew how.
Great.
And I think now it's the time that they had to meet other challenges. And I don't think he felt even that he's up to it.
Right.
Or even know how. So there we go.
Great. Moving on. Here we go. Here we go. I'm going to read some stuff. Be strong and resolute. Be not in fear or in dread of them, for it is indeed your God, Adonai, who marches with you. This is them saying to the people, when you're going to go in and you're going to be fighting all these people, don't worry, that's what's going to happen. Then Moses called Joshua and said to him in the sight of all Israel, be strong and resolute, for it is you who shall go with the people into the land that Adonai swore to their fathers to give them. And it is you who shall apportion it to them. And it is indeed, check this out. And it is indeed Adonai who will go before you, will be with you, will not fail you or forsake you. Fear not and be dismayed. God will be with you. God will not fail you or forsake you. Right there, I don't see any asterisks there. I don't see any asterisks, but we're going to get somewhere. Check this out. Then Moses wrote down this teaching and gave it to the priests, sons of Levi, or of Levi, who carried the ark of Adonai's covenant, and to all the elders of Israel. And Moses instructed them as follows: every 7th year, the year set for remission at the Feast of Booths, when all Israel comes to appear before your God Adonai in the place that God will choose, you shall read this teaching aloud in the presence of all Israel. Now they're actually talking about, this is why they say Moses wrote down the whole Torah. Right? Moses wrote it down, not just the 10 Commandments. This is where Moses actually wrote down the entire Torah right here. Gather all the people, men, women, and children, and the strangers in your communities, that they may hear and so learn to revere God Adonai and to observe faithfully every word of this teaching, which we also consider to be the Torah. Like, gather the people, read the Torah. Their children too, who have not yet had the experience, shall hear and learn to revere Adonai your God as long as they live in the land that you are about to cross the Jordan to possess. All right, so he's saying, all right, every year you got to read this whole Torah to everybody. So now we have the Torah. He's like, well, maybe we don't have to all read it in one day. Let's just break it up into sections and we'll just read it all year. So it's like, we don't forget. But check this out. We're going to get somewhere, I promise. Adonai said to Moses, this is the time is drawing near for you to die. Call Joshua and present yourselves in the tent of meeting, that I may instruct him. So like what Roy was saying, did Moses feel like he passed on the instructions? Like, what better way to pass on the instruction than have God do it, God's self right there. But I'm going to be with you in case you have any questions. Moses and Joshua went and presented themselves in the tent of meeting. Adonai appeared in the tent in a pillar of cloud, having come to rest at the entrance of the tent. Adonai said to Moses, all right, get ready for this. Okay, get ready for this. Let's just look at this line again. And it is indeed Adonai who will go before you, will be with you, and will not fail you or forsake you. Fear not, and be not dismayed. So check out what happened. Adonai said to Moses, the time is drawing near for you to die. Call Joshua, present yourself in the tent of meeting. And I instructed Moses, and Joshua went to the president and said, we said that. I'm on 16. Adonai said to Moses, you are soon to lie with your ancestors. This people will thereupon go astray after the alien gods in their midst, in the land that they are about to enter. They will forsake me and break my covenant that I made with them. Then my anger will flare up against them, and I will abandon them and hide my countenance from them. They shall be ready prey, and many evils and troubles shall befall them. And they shall say on that day, surely it is because our God is not in our midst that these evils have befallen us. Yet I will keep my countenance hidden on that day because of all the evil they have done in turning to other gods. So we have at one point saying, I will be with, don't worry, I'm going to be with you the whole time. I will not forsake you. I'm going to be right there with you. I'm going in ahead of you. I'm going to be there with you. I will not forsake you. Well, I'm actually going to forsake them. Don't worry. I wasn't really totally set. My fingers were crossed. Right? What is this about? It's like the people, because what's going to happen, and this is very, very interesting, is that the people are going to do really well. They're going to prosper. And with prosperity, what it is implying and comfort is people just kind of get lax in their belief system, in their understanding of how they really got to where it's not really just about them, that God had a hand in this, right? You are not the king. I am the king, meaning God. I'm not me, right? You are not the kings. You are not the queen. I am the royal one here, right? So I'm going to teach you a lesson. You got all complacent over here. And it's like comfort is the enemy of creativity. There's a saying, something like that. Like, if you are too comfortable in your life, you're not going to kind of push yourself to try new things or get better or any of those kind of, right? complacency and comfort. And this is what happened. They're like, oh, this is cool. Let's just hang out with these guys. Everything's great. And they pull away, even though God says, I will not forsake you. But then what happens? God forsakes them. Even when they say, oh my God, it's because, God's not with us. Yeah, I'm still hiding. What do we think of that?
May I say something, Rabbi?
You
I
sure
think
can.
that,
Go ahead.
I have been through so much poverty in my life, but the God was always with me. And since the things coming at me, and I know God's there. From 5 years old, and now that He's blessed me, because I met Mr. Richard Lovett from CAA the night, Rabbi Leader sent him to say hello to your neighbors. Right behind me, that was my precious Rabbi Leader. I will never, ever, ever forget where I came from, and that God builds a house, and that He gives us all we have. And thank Him for that. I would never, and you say people get comfortable when they forget. Not this girl.
Well, so that's interesting, right? Because here it actually says that God is going to turn away. God is going to leave them.
Because they served other gods. When you have what you have.
But I understand that, but God also, I'm not going to forsake you, except I'm going to forsake you. I'm not going to forsake you, except for when I'm going to forsake you.
That was because they went to
I'm
other
going to
gods.
fast on Yom Kippur in between meals.
No.
In between meals, I'm going to fast. I'm not going to forsake you, except for the times I'm going to forsake you. I'm not going to eat. I'm going to fast in between meals. Go ahead, Pnina. Brad, did you have your hand? Or Roy, did you have your hand up too? No. Okay, go, Pnina.
There is a saying, Dibra Torah bilshon bnei Adam. The Torah spoke so people should understand it. It's simplifying that people should understand it. So what you got here is like a back and forth, right? But there is always kind of like the did and then the result, the did and the result. It's what was done and the result of it. It's consequences. So I think it's telling people in a language that can understand there's going to be consequences every time that things are going to be done the wrong way, okay? So we are all children of God. So sometimes with one part is winning, the other part is losing, it's still people doing it to one another. So the thing is that the Torah is trying to show you that there's going to be ups and downs. That's about it. Sometimes things will be done the way it will benefit you. And then certain things that you're going to do maybe are going to cause, and not you, I'm not talking the Hebrew people, I'm talking humanity, are going to be caused for things to change. That's why the Torah is giving you examples with the commandments to actually teach you what is it that will keep you going. So it's up to people to follow it. If they don't follow it, they're going to have these ups and downs. So this is how I look at it.
Rebecca.
Well, just previous to what you read, there was something about stand strong and be resolute.
Yeah.
And I think that we've shown that we've been able to do that time and time again, despite whatever obstacles have been put in front of us.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I love that. So the this bar mitzvah that we that I just officiated last week, the bar mitzvah girl focused on that statement because it was last week in the afternoon. So the afternoon Torah portion is the same Torah portion that we read on Saturday morning, right? Because it starts that evening. So she wrote her whole Devar Torah about that whole idea. Stand strong and resolute. And what's fascinating, it's God says this to Moses. Moses says this to Joshua, and Joshua says this to all the people, right? So trying to say that we're really all in this together, And the only way that we're really going to be as strong and as resolute as possible is if we all kind of keep our eyes on the prize. We're all on the same page. But when some of us start, going to these other gods, not appreciating what we have, not understanding that, we are stewards rather than the lords in charge, then things
Right on,
start to
Rabbi.
break down,
Right on.
right? That's when things start to break down.
Hmm.
But you know, it's so funny. It's like, even as Moses was saying goodbye, he still didn't really have such a kind word for the Israelites as like in his last words to them, right? For like, I mean, it's almost like this is the root of Jewish guilt over here. I'll show. Let's look at it. It's really funny. It's like, okay, let's see, where did it go? Share the screen. All right. So therefore, write down this poem and teach it to the people of Israel. Put it in their
Rabbi?
mouths. Yes.
Can I say something? I'm sort of in a loud spot, so I don't know if you can hear me.
I can hear you, Brad. Yes, bring it.
Okay. Well, what weighs upon me is
Please.
this idea of God hiding his face from us. And you wonder, is that our current state of affairs? Has God hidden himself from us? How else do we explain the evil that surrounds us in this world? We see, and evil seems to be winning, unfortunately. So I don't know. To me, it's such a pessimistic message, and but one that resonates, unfortunately,
Well, I mean,
with
it's
me.
interesting, Brad, right? Because it's like, I mean, you're taking us in a big direction of like, well, what do we believe God's quote unquote powers to be, right? Because if we believe that really all of this is being caused by humans and God weeps with us, right? Then that's a different answer versus, you know, this God that intervenes. An intervening God could be like, I'm going to turn my face. Oh, I'm back. No, I'm back. Right. So this is really interesting, Brad. It starts, your question starts to go down first to what is our core theology, right? What is our core theology? All right, look at this. You say write it down. So it's like the Torah. So you promise their fathers and eat their fill, and the many evils and troubles befall them. And this poem shall confront them as a witness, since it will never be lost from their mouth of their offspring. For I know what plans they are devising even now, before I bring them into the land that I promised in the oath. So it's saying, like, I know that you people are going to transgress, but make sure you keep reading the Torah. You keep remembering the Torah. Right, that you will, this poem shall confront them as a witness, since it will never be lost from the mouth of their offspring. Right, this is like directly goes with, and you shall teach them diligently to your children. Right, in V'ahavta, that this poem shall confront them as a witness, since it will never be lost from the mouth of their offspring. For I know what plans they are devising even now, before I bring them into the land that I promised on an oath. So God already knows, yeah, I'm going to be turning my back. But if they keep the Torah, then they shouldn't have to worry about that. So then check this out. Here's Moses. That day, Moses wrote down this poem and taught it to the Israelites. And talking about Torah here. And God charged Joshua, son of Nun, be strong and resolute, for you shall bring the Israelites into the land that I promised in the oath, and I will be with you. When Moses had put down in writing the words of this teaching to the very end, right? The last words of Torah, Moses charged the Levites who carried the Ark of the Covenant of Adonai, saying, take this book of teaching and place it beside the Ark of the Covenant of your God Adonai, and let it remain there as a witness against you. Well, I know how defiant and stiff-necked you are. Even now, while I am still alive in your midst, you have been defiant toward Adonai. How much more so then when I am dead, right? It's like Jackie Mason, right, having to put in the Jewish guilt here. You're terrible now. How much more so when I'm dead? Oh, terrible, right? Gather to me all the elders of your tribes and your officials, that I may speak all of these words to them, and that I may call heaven and earth to witness against them. For I know that when I am dead, you will act wickedly and turn away from the path that I enjoined upon you, and that in time to come misfortune will befall you for having done evil in the sight of Adonai. whom you vexed by your deeds. Then Moses recited the words of this poem to the very end in the hearing of the whole congregation of Israel. So while he's reading this poem and then he stops, he's like, it's like everything I've done for the last 40 years is for naught, because as soon as you get in there, you're going to be all wicked and stuff. All right, let me finish reading the story to you. Right? That's basically what he says. That's basically what Moses is doing here. So even in the end, to the last breath, it's like Moses was just not feeling it from these people. It's like, that's why it goes back to my question. Do we really feel like he felt fulfilled in his job? Like, is he thinking my job was really just to take these nasty, wicked people from one place to the other and that's it? Great, I gave them this Torah, I gave them these laws, I spent my life doing this. They're always whining, they're always complaining, and here we go, and they're still gonna not be so nice. They're still gonna go in there and they're gonna get all lazy. And, we hanging out with other people's other gods. What did I do this for? Do you think he's got any questions like that? What did I do this for? What's up, Brad? Go ahead, Brad.
Yeah.
Your hand is up.
No, that was from before.
Oh, that was from before. Okay. Okay, we're going to go Rebecca and then Donna.
I would think that Moses is feeling okay. I mean, look, he built this whole nation. He took them out of Egypt. He moved them along, and he's brought them now to the end of their journey. I would think that he would be looking back and saying, you know what? They're going to continue to have problems. They're going to continue to be flawed in their thinking. But look what I've done. Look at the nation that I've built. I would think that he'd be reflecting back on that.
I built this nation of stiff-necked and defiant people. Wow, good for me. Look at this. They're fabulous, except when they're not fabulous. Right? I don't know. Okay, we're going to go Donna and then Pnina.
I agree with you, Rabbi. I said like a diamond, it's a faucet with different sides to it. There were accomplishments, there's things to be grateful for, so many things to be grateful for. But we're only human, we're flawed. Like Rabbi Leader says, we're only human. And I try to do things, and I stumble 2 steps back, 4 steps forward, 2 steps back, but I'm trying. So we all only try. I think Moses really, it was a complex outlook on everything, and he did the best he could do.
So that maybe his thinking is not, what is it, a square peg in a round hole that what am I doing here? What did I do? Well, how did I just spend my entire existence? And this is what happens. These people are going to go and get all, forget everything we just talked about for the last 40 years. I even wrote it down. You got the tablets, even the broken ones, for what you did with that golden calf. Come on, people. Right? That's what he's saying.
Rabbi, that's why we have Yom Kippur. Why he had to write it down, because God knew that we would be flawed and weak and human. And that's why we have our holidays, to go talk to God, to have a relationship with God, to try to do better.
Yeah, but do better. But like, it's easy for us to go in there. I got you, Miriam. I see you. It's easy for us to go into the synagogue and ask God for forgiveness. But the real work, right, is going to each other and asking for forgiveness.
Right on.
This is okay. Miriam, go ahead.
I'm reacting in a very personal way to this. I've read it before, but this time I'm thinking Moses was so deeply hurt to his very core that this was an expression. This was one way to say, God, why did you do this to me? My entire my projection also of thinking was to enter the promised land. So his guilt of hitting the rock instead of speaking to it, as God asked him to, his enormous conflicting emotions of wanting something so deeply and knowing it can never be realized is making him say these ugly things about Israel, which are true. They're all facts. They were a rebellious, ungrateful people. They were all that, plus also a marvelous people. So this is making him utter these difficult words. Instead of making nice, instead of compromising, instead of ending as a real good guy, he doesn't care.
Because he's like acting out of being wounded.
Out of being deeply wounded.
Deeply wounded. And this is him just acting out. He doesn't really mean it. He understands. He doesn't really
I think there's a part of him that really does not mean it so much. And there's a part of him that has to blame because he is so full of blame. He has to blame the others because he is so guilty.
Wow. Thank you, Miriam. All right, I'm going to chew on that for a while. Penina and then Merle.
Okay.
Penina says, okay, here we go. Everybody settle in.
You're muted, Penina.
Okay, again. Okay. Is that okay now?
Yeah.
I am going back that the whole thing is looking from wherever it is that was observed before. He's talking, he knows that they had ups and downs in the desert. They had Korach and his people with the golden calf. He saw what they came from. He knows what they came from. There were ups and downs in the desert too.
Oh,
so
yeah.
he's actually referring again to the ups and downs that are going to be possible in their life. And I'm going to show you one example of what people do, right? The Wright brothers, when they invented the airplanes, do they intended that people should throw atom bomb with it or bombs on other nations? No, they thought it would be a great way to travel, correct? Okay, it's what people do with it. So it's the same thing here. There were ups, they were giving the Torah, they had good times, but then there was straying at certain times. He's not talking out of this sleep. What's going to happen is building wherever he's telling them of things that already happened. He knows that there will be ups and downs because that's what it was. And the whole idea is to try to tell them to stick to the commandments, and those cycles are going to be taking care of themselves as they happen. And because that's what exactly had happened in the desert. So he's not prophesizing, he's talking from experience. You'll have up and downs and God is still going to be there for you. And that's it.
Thank you. All right, Merle, last word.
I'm just thinking that, you know, the human nature was in existence then, however many years ago this was supposed to be.
Of course.
And
Good.
Moses certainly had a lot of crap thrown at him from people, no matter what he tried to do.
I know.
And I look at it in today's world.
Yeah.
More people show up for high holidays than they do any other time during the year. And when you walk out of the building, those people are the ones that are complaining about the sermon, about the seats, about the prayer book, whatever. And this is what I don't regret about retiring when I did. But I think of it all as, why are they here? Okay, it's just like, you know, you're going to go into Egypt, you're whatever, after all this time, you're still, we can't find anything to make you happy.
I don't, Merle, tell that.
What are we trying to do to make you happy? And I really think that's what God was trying to teach Moses. Excuse the computer. I think that God was trying to teach Moses as to, this is how people are going to be and how you should or shouldn't react.
All right.
Right on.
Beautifully said, Merle. Thank you. So on that note, I want to wish everybody a big Shana Tova, Gamar Chatima Tova. May you have like written in the book of life for a good, fabulous, and fruitful, and joyous, and sweet coming year.
Same to you, and Shabbat Shalom to everybody.
Oh yeah, and Shabbat Shalom. That too.
Shabbat Shalom.
I'll see you on the screen.
Gamar Chatima Tova.
Thank you, Merle. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Next week.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you, Rabbi.